10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 131. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. This is episode 131. Just to let you know, you can get all the PDFs to every single episode we've ever done by joining our Patreon page. And that is supporting us every single month with $3 of your hard-earned money to keep these episodes coming at you and getting a bunch of stuff in return, including all of the PDFs. We've also introduced our monthly boot camp where I'm going to show you a particular exercise that I want you to work on for the month. And the Patreon members have been very excited about this, and I know a bunch of them are getting down to work. We did some interval work last month, and we're going to continue that this month. So the benefits and the advantages of signing up for this just keep adding up. And if I do say so myself, I do think it's worth $3 a month. So if you want to go over and sign up to become a member, just head over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon links, go over there and pledge your support, and you get full access to all that material. Wanted to give a big shout out to a bunch of people that joined up this month. Thank you all for becoming part of the family, and I hope you're getting something out of it. Thank you to Dean, John, Ian, April, Paolo, Amadeo, Ekinam, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry, Ekinam, if I'm not, and Kate. Thank you guys so much for showing your support. It means the world to us. And without any further ado, let's get into this week's episode. So this week we're going to talk about a pattern, a diminished pattern that most of you have probably heard before, whether you've realized it or not. And obviously the title of the episode is the most famous diminished pattern because I truly think that this might be the most used diminished pattern in the history of jazz. Now, it was made famous by John Coltrane, and the first place that I ever heard it was on his solo over Moment's Notice. He played this pattern over a B-flat pedal, and it was just a revelation to so many people out there to hear this amazing pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the pattern, we'll talk about how it works, and then what I've done is I've gone ahead and put the pattern into 3 different derivations so that you can see the mode of thinking that I take when I use one of these patterns, but try to make it a little bit more personal. Now, just sort of a disclaimer is that this pattern is so widely used that you probably don't want to go too heavy on it in your solos. It's an awesome thing to use, but what I really, really suggest is that you kind of flip it in your own way and figure out a personalized approach to playing it, because it's just been played so many times throughout history that in my mind, I want to try to not repeat what I've heard verbatim, right? I do repeat stuff that I've heard all the time, but a goal of mine in the practice room is to take something that sounds really familiar and to make it sound a little bit more personal to my playing, so that my playing is not as predictable. But anyways, you can use it however you want, and I highly suggest using it in its original form just to get the sound down, and then spending a little bit of time concentrating on, flipping it in your own way. So let's start by talking about the structure of this pattern. Now, if you look at your PDF for this week, you'll notice that we put this pattern over a C7 flat 9 chord. And this is the most common place that I've heard this is over a dominant flat 9 chord. Now, there is a C diminished chord present in this chord symbol. So we obviously have C, which is the root. And then if we go up to E flat, we get the sharp 9, which is part of our diminished dominant scale. Then if we go up to F sharp, we get the sharp 11. And then if we jump up to A, we get the 13 over the chord. All 4 of those tones put together creates a C diminished 7th chord. So that's what we're going to be working off of. Now the pattern is actually really, really simple. What we do is we take each one of those chord members and we're going to use the note a half step below it to create the effect of this pattern. And this is the basis of the entire thing. And then all that's left up to us is to figure out how we want to manipulate that pattern. So you'll notice the first example is the pattern just straight up 2 octaves. So it's C to B flat, down a whole step, E flat to D flat, down another whole step, F sharp to E, down a whole step, A to G, down a whole step. That's the entire pattern. Let's check out what it sounds like before we go any further. So I'm willing to bet that a lot of you have heard that before. Does that sound familiar to you? If you listen to Coltrane or Michael Brecker or a lot of other people, you'll probably recognize that sound from some of your favorite recordings. And that's what makes it so awesome. I personally love studying everything that Coltrane did, and this is like a really important contribution to the music that he made was this particular pattern. All right, so let's move on to example number 2 on our sheet. So now what I'm doing is I'm staggering these whole step relationships. So I'm starting on a high C, I'm going down a whole step to B flat, then I'm jumping up to E flat and going down to D flat. So it's just like exercise number 1, but now I'm actually working down. So after I do that pattern, I'm jumping down to A and I'm starting the next pattern. So this is actually working your way down the instrument, but it is an ascending 4-note pattern. And this gives the impression of giving it a little bit of an unpredictable nature. So, and widening the intervals a little bit, which always helps to make things more interesting. So let's check out what exercise number 2 sounds like. So there's that pattern, number 2. Let's move on to pattern number 3 on your PDF. This one is seemingly a little bit more random, but let me explain what I was trying to do. So I start on the 6th, jump down to the 5th. So there's our whole step relationship. Now I'm skipping one of the chord tones. Instead of going to the sharp 9 to flat 9, I'm jumping down doing root 7. Then I'm jumping back up. I'm doing sharp 11 to 3. Then from there, I'm jumping up doing root to 7 again. Then from there, jumping up to 13 to 5, sharp 9 to flat 9, sharp 11 to 3, 1 to 7, and finally back to the root. This is the interesting part about these patterns is if you're really, really well versed in the different notes in the pattern, you have this ultimate freedom to just kind of jump around and do whatever you want. And that does have the effect of making it sound a lot less predictable and giving you a bunch of freedom with this sound. So let's check out what the 3rd exercise sounds like on our PDF. All right, let's check out the 4th and final exercise from this week's episode. Here is just another basic manipulation of it. What I'm doing is starting on the root, going down to the 7, then I'm jumping all the way up to the 13, and then I'm moving in order for 4 notes. So 13, 5, sharp 11, 3, then I'm jumping up 2, back to the root, then I'm doing 4 in order, root 7, 13, 5, and so on and so forth, right up all the way until I get to the top. And then you'll notice the last 6 notes before the whole note are basically just coming down that diminished dominant scale with a couple of skips here and there. Let's check out what this one sounds like. So there's the 4 exercises for you this week. This is actually a really hard thing to kind of explain, but let me try to put it in words that are a little bit more helpful to you guys. So basically what we have is 4 groups of 2 notes, and those are the diminished chord tones and then a whole step below them. So the real goal that I want you to accomplish this week is to take those 4 2-note groupings and be able to do whatever you want with them. And that's really what the exercises are trying to point out this week is just, hey, here's a bunch of ways you can steal these and use them, but ultimately you just want to have total freedom with them. So if you try to come up with 5 or 6 other exercises that resemble these that I've given you this week, that's going to be your best bet in terms of, having your own personal approach to this sound. The other kind of point of this episode is getting that sound in your ear. It's such a recognizable sound. I guarantee you when you go and listen to your favorite records after this, you're going to start to hear this sound kind of all over the place, which is a really awesome thing. The more devices that we can hear, that means the more that we're learning. And then when we hear those in our recordings, we can actually take a little bit from that and work it into our own playing. Okay, if this is confusing to any of you, I highly suggest just grabbing the PDF and really studying it. But if you have any questions beyond that, make sure you email me 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about this stuff. Okay? All right, well, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week with some brand new episodes. Talk to you soon. Bye.